Hey everybody, thank you for joining me today. So we're going to take a look at distressing. And there's a lot of different tools that you can use to distress your projects. These are just a few, and I'm sure other people probably know a lot more that you can use. But I just wanted to talk about a few items that I like to use. I've seen people use their scissors, files, depending on the roughness of the sandpaper. The Prima tool is my favorite and one I tend to use most often because there's so many different parts of this that distress. Even underneath there at the very bottom, there's even a spot. So, and then those are interchangeable. You can get different widths or roughness, I guess. Would that be the word? Probably not. But you can also open it like I just did and empty out any fuzzies that are inside. And then, of course, you can also distress with your inks. So here, we're going to distress this one edge using scissors. So if you got a pair of scissors at home, you can distress and use on your cards. You don't need anything as very expensive tool or anything like that, and it works. It gives you, definitely a nice and interesting edge. You know what I mean? Where you want your project to seem older, like it's been around for a while. You can use your nail file. This one I have here, I usually use it more so for like when I use my cutters and I have fuzzies. Sometimes I use it just to get the fuzzes off because it doesn't really distress as much as I would like, so I would take a look. There are nail files that are rougher, and those would work really well. This one here is one that I got from Kaiser Craft, and there's 4 different sides, and each has a different texture. So you could use that too. And then on the side of this Prima tool, this is probably what I use the most. When I go to distress something, I always grab this one and I start just taking it down the edge. And you'll see here, like even as I keep playing with the different sides, I always wind up going right back to it. Even using the, it's almost like a cheese grater. That's what it feels like. When I was using that side to distress the edge, and I still wind up going right back to that side tool. It's amazing. I love it. And then I'm taking the back off because I never used the bottom part. I was like, I don't know what this does. And so that's why I was just like rubbing it along the paper itself. But I found when I took it along the edge, it distressed it almost just like the side piece that I was using. So, if any parts get dull, I can change up and use, I can use that now. And then just go back and use the side a little bit more to get more texture. So now I'm trying to do it so you guys can see how all the edges are roughed up. And putting it on top of here, it helps. So you can mat it with like a pattern paper, and then that gives you, interest as far as your mats. I've even used it on chipboard to make the edges not so pristine that I want it, like on my layouts and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of options as far as that tool. And then if you just have your distress inks or regular inks and you got one of the distress tools, you can just ink around your edges. Some people use that as a way to distress. When you go around your edges, what it does, it gives more of an aged antique, depending on the color that you use. It kind of mutes some of the pattern too. So if you have something that's very busy, like we have this heart pattern paper right here, it's a scrap piece that I used from my layout on Sunday. And as you go around, you can see like on the outside edge, it kind of mutes it. It gives it a little bit it just tones it down, you know. And then if you wanted to, you didn't want to use the foam piece, you can go directly to the paper with the ink pad. Whether it's the mini inks or your full-size ink pads, you can use those straight to paper to distress the edges as well. And what it does is, and I'm going to try and show you, which I know is probably not even worth doing only because the paper is so thin, but whenever you cut paper, whether it's pattern paper, solid paper, a lot of times the core is white. So a lot of people will take the distress inks and go around the edges, so that way it's not such a stark contrast to your paper. You know, you have a dark pattern paper or a dark solid piece for your mat, and then you have bright white edges. So for some people, they don't like that. So that's why you use the distress ink around it, so that way your edges fade away. It's not something that stands out very bright, and you can focus then on your pattern paper. And I'm trying to show you here, but like I said, it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, because a lot of the papers I have, you know, they're thin. They're just cardstock. But trust me, if you've been cutting up your paper, tearing your paper, and you put it down and you're like, you know, I don't like how you see the white, take you some distress ink or one of your ink pads, grab a little blending tool right there, and go around your edges, and you'll probably like it better. So I just grabbed distress oxide ink, and I grabbed one of the smaller pieces I had, and I'm just going to go around the outside. Even the oxide inks works as a way to tone down your edges and to also give like an antique look. I'm using the Vintage Photo, which was probably the first distress ink, regular distress ink that I ever had, was the Vintage Photo, and I loved it for aging your edges and making your, you know, projects just have a antique, like it's been around for a while. Now I grabbed the distress ink, and I'm using some stamps that I had out from my last project, and it splatters and ink spots and stuff like that. You can use that to age something, to give it texture and dimension. You could buy stencils and do layers of inking or embossing paste and sprays. There's a lot of different methods as far as how you distress and make something look aged, okay? So definitely go ahead and dive into your craft room, grab something and distress it. See how many ways you can do it, what tools you have that will work best, you know, and just play. That's the best way to figure out what's going to work best for you. Like I said, I love my Prima tool. Other people love using their scissors. It's quick and easy. They can just grab it and go. So just find the best one for you. I think the Prima tool is still on the Scrapbooking with Me website. If it is, I will link it down below, and I'll also put a link to the Tim Holtz scissors. Alright, you guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and share button. And make sure you head over to the Scrapbooking with Me website. There's a lot of sales going on and a lot of pre-orders, especially with all the new stuff coming out. So make sure you guys take a look at that, and I hope you have a great day.